We really enjoyed this stretch of the dense rainforest. And in fact, right across the ride, the vegetation was forever changing, always interesting. Well, a dirty weekend in the beautiful Victorian High Country was calling. On a Friday afternoon in early April, we left our base near Castlemaine in central Victoria for a 3-hour ride across to Alexandra, near the High Country where we'll be staying for 3 nights. We rode just over 200 kilometres of back roads, running through some rich farming land and rolling hills, nature reserves, across to Puckapunyal, Seymour, downhill into Yark and then into Alexandra. Our group of 5 consisted of both large and mid-sized bikes from a 1200 GS down to the new CF-Moto 450 MT. All had fairly aggressive 50-50 tyres in expectation of some damp and tough terrain with lots of climbs and descents. We were also prepared for cooler high altitude temperatures and potentially quite wet and slippery conditions. On this ride, we tried the cornerman system for the first time, used by groups of bikes, so in theory no one gets lost or left behind. And it worked really quite well. We actually thought it was faster and more efficient overall. So rather than each rider slow for a corner and even stop, and not turning until their buddy behind has seen them, well, hopefully, which is how we've always ridden, the cornerman system plants a rider on each corner, being the person following the lead rider. They indicate and wait until everyone has passed and then rejoins them just before Charlie and Charlie, or in our case, Brett. Arriving at our farm cottage, everyone was in good spirits. Not only were we going to ride some awesome tracks over the next 2 days, but the weather forecast looked cool but dry, with only a low chance of rain. So our plan for Saturday was to complete a 270 kilometre loop just south of Eildon, climbing at times to 1,000 metres, riding mostly logging and forestry tracks, and a few disused trails through rainforest. And then all going well, we'd be in Marysville for lunch and finish overlooking the magnificent Lake Eildon reservoir. These riding conditions were near perfect. Fortunately for us, they've been quite dry, even at the higher altitudes. And, well, you could see the anxiety levels of the guys being replaced by jubilation as we got further into the ride. We really enjoyed this stretch of the dense rainforest. And in fact, right across the ride, the vegetation was forever changing, always interesting. real highlight was riding along this mountain ridge at 1100 metres. It just went on, and the views, well, really, you just felt like you were on top of the world. On a section of riding curvy blacktop in the afternoon, we swapped bikes so I could test ride the new CF-Moto 450. And I was impressed with the bike. Three things I liked included the handling and performance. I was actually surprised how good it was. Also the value and all the small thoughtful inclusions. There's been a lot put into this package. And finally, the twin 270 crank motor sounded really nice. What I struggled with, and I know others share it, is where it's made. But hey, let's not get sidetracked. Speaking of sidetracks, we turned into Jerusalem Creek, which runs down the edge of Lake Eildon through dense scrub and crosses a couple of creeks. This track was also really fun to ride. And here's one of the things you need to be ever mindful of: oncoming vehicles, mostly big 4x4s, travelling way too fast and not seeing you until the last minute. Have a look at this. One of the highlights, without doubt, is the Lake Pinnaker lookout over Lake Eildon. This embankment dam is 14,000 hectares in area, and on a good day with the sun setting, look at it, just breathtaking. This east lookout, also looking out over the causeway, is high up and pretty specky. But we weren't hanging around. A round of beers was on our mind, and so we took a beeline to the Thornton pub. And that was the end of our first day riding a Victorian High Country. Gee, it was a bit chilly this morning, but we'd warm up soon enough. Today's plan was to step it up and take on more rugged climbing and descents. We have a shorter ride plan for today, around 150 kilometres, but it would be a lot more demanding and undulating than yesterday. And step it up is exactly what we did right from the get-go. How good are these whoops? Too fast and you get some air, which is obviously very tempting, but really punishing on the bike. And not to mention really tiring after a short while. But the whoops, they just keep coming. Getting to the end today, upright and in one piece, would be an achievement. Certainly in our favour are the drier than usual track conditions. That really is a blessing.
slow motion going to the ground. Started off with some of those jumps, you know, to work or something, I did on the end, so I didn't have to hit.
I got on the first one because it caught me out and I got and I was like, whoa!
What you don't want to be is like half pregnant.
No, that's
if you're going to get air, accelerate up to it and really enjoy the jump.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's when you're going too fast, it's like
You go like that,
and you try and overbrake.
Honestly, looking at this camera footage, it really doesn't show the undulating track. It seems to remove all of the inclines and descents, and whilst there weren't any climbs or drops that were, well, jaw-dropping, there was still plenty of challenges and sketchy terrain, particularly for the bigger bikes. You had to choose your path carefully at times. Okay, sometimes I got a bit lost and took a wrong turn. Frustrating for the others, I know. Sorry, guys. At the end of the day, I found another lookout on Skyline Road, another specky view of the reservoir. But taking in the view was short-lived. Once again, the guys were hungry and had cold beer on their minds. And so naturally, we ended the day at Point Brewery in Alexandra. Great spot. Today is our last day of riding, making our way home west to Castlemaine. And with a full day to get there, we decided to wing it, finding interesting roads and tracks, so we tried to avoid the main roads and headed across to Lake Eildon and Daylesford. Honestly, what is it? On our rides, we always seem to come across wrecks, only to wonder what happened and did anyone survive. In fact, on our recent adventure riding up along the Darling River, we spotted another very similar wreck. It's just crazy seeing these vehicles after such a big accident. So we rode into the beautiful and historic Daylesford for coffee, and then it was our last push north to Castlemaine and home. Out of Daylesford we took a dirt shortcut, only to come across a bizarre arrangement of rusted iron art. And the track led us down into and across the very dry Loddon River. So there you have it, our dirty weekend was done. Not getting very dirty, but certainly some dust. We're so fortunate to have ridden and really enjoyed more of the amazing Victorian High Country. Thanks for coming along and joining us on our dirty weekend.